official.convo.nation, the Introspect, where we conversate about all and try to understand. Right, let's go straight into it. So we've got some of our finest old bobs with us on the couch today. So we're going to go straight into it. I'd like for everybody to introduce themselves, tell us how long you've been working for the police for and what units you're attached to.
Okay, hello, I'm Joy. I'm a police officer and I work at New Scotland Yard for Deputy Commissioner's Delivery Group, and I have been in the Met now for about 14 years now. Yeah, that's me.
I'm Izzy. I am a sergeant in the mounted branch, that's riding horses for the Met. I've been there for 20 years now.
My name's Ashley. I'm a sergeant for TSG, it's the officers that go around in the blue vans. Been in the Met since 2010. So.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I also work with Ashley in the Territorial Support Group based out of Catford. I've been in the Met now for just over 7 years.
Okay, interesting. So we're going to touch on something quickly. You said you're on the Mount.
Mountain.
Mountain, yeah. So that's to do with, if you just explain a little bit more for those that don't know what you mean.
Yeah, so like there's loads of different units in the Met, but I ride horses, so it's mounted. And because people always think I say mountain as well, and I'm like, no, I don't climb mountains, but some days. So I ride horses for a living. I'm based out of Hyde Park, so I've actually got a stable which I manage. I've got 10 officers and 6 horses, and we basically, like our day-to-day pre-COVID, we do football matches. That's like our bread and butter work. We police those. We police demonstrations, and we spend a lot of our time on my unit, which is one unit. We cover like central London, around Westminster, so we do a lot of ceremonial work. I work with like the King's Troop and the Queen's lifeguard, so we do a lot of escorting of the army basically, and like major ceremonial events like Trooping the Colour and stuff. And then the rest of the time we're just police officers on horses, so we're literally going out and fighting crime, but on the back of a horse. So we are still police officers, but we just happen to get around on a horse.
So you're the modern day cowboys or cowgirls.
yeah, I'll give you that. Oh, you can have that.
So actually, you said you're in TSG, so you're the what we would call on the streets the bully vans.
I knew that was coming. Yeah,
big bullies in the before you lot were in like vans that were shaped like the ambulances.
Yes, so the silver
they're
carriers,
no longer
yeah.
They're no longer in service, or
So the majority of them are 57, 58 plates. So we've moved on a little bit from there. We get a newer vehicle. It's taken quite a long time, 12 years to get a new vehicle. So so we've got some new vehicles now. So so we've got the blue carriers, so people know who we are and everything else. Which it's a bit like branding, but realistically, we do a lot of work, and we do all kinds of stuff from football to going into the community, speaking to people, doing a lot of community engagement work as well. So it all comes together really. So. And
how many people can fit in that van?
Officially,
officially.
Nine. There's 9 seats in the van. So yeah.
Okay.
So usually you have 1 inspector, 1 sergeant, and 7 PCs.
And whereabouts do you sit in the van?
I sit at the back.
Okay,
yeah,
so yeah. You're not up front.
No. Not unless there's any other drivers not in. So yeah, I'll be at the back. So.
Okay, so do you drive the van at any time?
I'm basically his driver all the time. So
okay,
I'm the one that takes him round.
Okay, and Joy, Scotland Yard. That's a big title there. So explain a little bit more on what you're actually doing.
So the Deputy Commissioner's Delivery Group is there to implement the Mayor's Action Plan that came about. But before that, so basically it is about what we're doing with our black officers and staff within the organisation, how we're supporting them, and it's also how we're engaging with the community. So it's really focusing on that, our engagement and our support for black officers and staff, and how we're engaging. And so the delivery group consists of about 12 of us, both police officers and staff as well. And it's about us looking into all that. So across the Met, like Izzy said, there are so many departments across the Met, and it's us sort of pulling it all together, seeing where there's any gaps, seeing where we can support and what we can do better as the Met, to make it work, make it be more inclusive, more diverse, and that kind of stuff. So that's what our delivery group does.
Okay, so is there an official number of the amount of units that there is in the police force? Do you like have a number?
Ooh.
Hundreds probably.
How many officers?
No,
How many separate
how many
units?
different separate units?
Because you'll have sort of one unit, but then under that unit there'll be, so these guys are like task force, but then they've got different units underneath that kind of umbrella. So you've got the dogs, mounted, TSG, Marines.
Marine unit.
So we're all under.
So Marines
MOD.
are under the police force too.
Yeah.
I thought that was a whole separate entity.
No, the
We
Marine
used to
unit, the boating unit.
Okay.
Yes,
yes.
not the Royal Marines.
No, that would have been cool.
Nothing to do with us. Yeah.
They're almost as cool as that, though, I reckon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of different departments.
All right. So it doesn't matter who answers first. So what made you want to become a police officer? What was that? Where did that whole start for any of you lot?
Okay. Right. So I guess for me, how I became a police officer. So when I was younger, I saw a lot of things happen around me that weren't fair as far as I'm concerned, and it made me want to come into the organisation as a black officer and make change, and that's why I joined, because I really did want to make change. I thought I can't do it on the outside. I need to come on the inside and try and do it, because if there's more people that look like me, then it's going to have more of an impact for the community, because then I'm representing the community that we're serving. So that was it for me. That's why.
Whereabouts did you grow up? Did you grow up in London?
I grew up in South East London.
Okay.
Yeah, South East London.
So you would have seen a lot of kind of disadvantaged situations within your community.
Yeah.
And that's what made you. What age would you say that you wanted to become a police officer when you know?
I must have been about, because I worked in Superdrugs in Catford. I remember that when I was 18, and I applied. So probably in my 20s maybe, but I couldn't, at that point I applied to become a police staff, and I didn't get the job. And so I then sort of went and had kids, and then I joined, when my children were at school, I joined as a special. So a voluntary police officer, and did that just to get a taste. I thought kids are at school.
Is that the blue uniform?
No, not PCSO. So you it's the same uniform as a police officer.
Okay.
But you're just doing it on a voluntary basis. So I still used to police with the regulars. So I used to police up in Westminster, and you'd go out on patrol and do the same things, but it's voluntary. So you did a minimum amount of hours each month. I think it was 8 hours or something like that. You needed to put in. And then, then you'd go home. But I got a taste of it. And people who, from my unit at Westminster, kept saying to me, Joy, why don't you join as a regular? Why don't you join as a regular? And I was like, I can't. I've got kids, my mum, sort of thing. And they're like, it doesn't matter. You can join. And I did. The Met had the opportunity for me to join as a part-time officer, because I didn't think you could do that. But you could. And I joined. So I started my training course and, joined as a part-time police officer.
Okay. And yourself?
Completely different to Joy. I basically was a personal trainer when I was younger. That's the route I wanted to go down. And also I worked with horses when I was little. Like, I used to work at a stable to get a ride, so I could ride. I didn't, my parents weren't loaded. I just did it because I loved working around horses. And then I had a conversation with someone one day at the gym, and they were like, have you ever thought about combining the two things? And I was like, what can I do that with? And then anyway, I just came across the police, and I was like, that's wicked, because I love working with people, and that takes my personal training stuff that I did, and I loved being around people. They've got a mounted branch, maybe I could go there. And also it's a good wage, for a young person coming in on a starting wage like that, I couldn't find another job where I could do that. And it gave me the security of knowing that I could have a decent wage every month.
So how old was you when you made that decision?
So I was probably about 19 then.
You was pretty young.
Yeah, I was. So I'd been a trainer from when I was 16, and then I didn't join till I was 21. So it took a couple of years, and I kept kind of mulling it over and I think if it was the right thing. So I was pretty sure when I went in that is what I wanted to go and do.
Yourself, Ashley?
So I think got some photos of me when I was younger, about 3 or 4, with like policeman hats on and stuff like that. So obviously,
Send them in.
I've just talked myself into something now. But once I started getting to like of an age of like understanding, I didn't have any interest in being a police officer at all. Like completely throughout school. And when it was only till I got to sixth form where I was looking at universities and they're talking about something like a personal statement. So a lot of people talk about they go do the Duke of Edinburgh, do some volunteering work. And I was sitting there thinking about what I could do. And my friend who worked in a gym at the time, he became a special, so a volunteer basis. And he was talking about the free travel and 50% of Nando's.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what's
Nando's?
I was like, how'd you get 50% of Nando's? And he started talking to me and he started talking about it. And I was like, oh, this interests me a little bit. So then I applied, and then ever since then, I've sort of fallen in love with the role. I'll be honest.
So you got persuaded.
I got lured in by
Like
50%
Nando's.
Yeah.
And yourself, right?
Yeah, I think it's sort of similar to Ashley, but ever since I was a kid, that's kind of all I wanted to do. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it was, and I remember my parents always used to say I kind of talked about it as a kid. And then I went into sixth form, same thing. I sort of thought about university or becoming a police officer, and the way I looked at it is, it was the role that I wanted to do. And I think I was quite lucky that I knew what I wanted to do, because I don't think a lot of people have that. People might go from job to job. So I thought, well, I'm not going to go to university. I don't want to get into myself into student debt. I want to go into a role where, as he says, really good starting wage, especially for someone. I joined when I was 19 years old, so I was on a lot of money for a 19-year-old. And yeah, it was what I thought it would be, and I really enjoy it.
So apart from Joy, did you all grow up out of London or in London?
I grew up in South West London in a council house.
Okay.
So yeah.
I was North London.
I was South London.
Okay, so we've got 3 South Londons in there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right. So, how did your friends and family take it when you first told them that you wanted to become a police officer?
To be honest, my friends group when I was 18, and I used to do some stupid stuff when I was a kid. I think my mum's going to see this. I'm certainly not going to admit to what I was doing. But yeah, I was just getting up to just literally, you'd call it boys stuff, being stupid. I remember there was like a rumour you'd be PCSOs, the one in the blue uniform, they can only chase you for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'd do what we could to try and get chased for 30 minutes. I was never going to run for 30 minutes. I haven't got 30 minutes in me of running, but I don't know why, but that sort of mentality was there. So, but then when I joined and I told my parents, they were quite supportive. My dad made a couple of jokes about joining the Babylon and how he can't look at me the same. But I did notice my friends groups did change a little bit. So it's just unfortunately they went down a certain path and I went down a different path. So I wouldn't say there was a bit of backlash, but it's probably for the better.
We called them plastic cops. That's what
Plastic
we used
cops,
to
yeah.
call them.
I don't know why. Like, why was that even a thing? Like, 30 minutes the rumour was. So yeah, we'd do what we could to get chased.
Okay.
I generally had like a good response of people. Like friends wise, I didn't have any issues with my actual friends, and I think maybe at that period everyone was starting to grow and go off and do other stuff. It's funny the amount of people, because I used to be based at out of West Hampstead, so I did a lot of policing in Camden, where I hung out when I was younger, or like Barnet and over in Haringey, and the amount of people I'd bump into from my old school, and like even like the kids that were kind of off the rails a bit then, and like they're just, we're all grown-ups now, and everyone's just like a good human. Like it's really interesting seeing people in that light.
Yeah.
But so I think I had really quite a positive surrounding to me when I joined.
Mine, my parents were proud. They were happy, and I didn't really tell anyone else, if I'm honest. My friendships groups. I remember going out actually to a club one night, and I was with my friend from work as well, and it wasn't something I promoted, and she'd had a few drinks. And we bumped into these guys. I was single at the time, by the way. Bumped into some guys and they were chatting to us and everything. And, he said, where are you from? I'm from, where did you go to school? And all this anyway. And he went to me, you went to the same college as my brother. And I was like, who's your brother? Anyway, turns out I know his brother. And you know, he goes, oh, I'm going to ring him now. And my friend, who's had a couple of years, goes, yeah, she's a copper now. I was just like, oh. And it got him on the phone and everything. It was just the most awkward conversation I've ever had. And so, yeah, I don't think it went down too well with my friends. But as these guys said, I think we just naturally kind of drifted anyway. A couple of like my closer friends kind of knew. They seemed all right. But yeah, it wasn't really the job of choice, I don't think, that my friends appreciated me doing, really, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think I was quite lucky because I spoke about it from a young age. I kind of flicker between two friendship groups, but I think when things started getting serious and I was like putting applications in and actually making movements towards joining, I did sort of fall into one friendship group rather than the other, just because it's naturally what happens. But it is what it is, like, you know.
Yeah.
So off the back of that, we're gonna touch on something. So do police officers only date police officers? How does that work when it comes to the dating game?
Okay,
Do you
no,
actually...
Absolutely not.
Do you actually say I'm a police officer right from the jump, or do you tend to keep that to yourself?
Yeah, I don't talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't.
You don't?
I start the boring job.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone, but I go, you know, I'd work in a bank or something like that.
I
Something
just say I
horrendously
write
boring.
verses.
Yeah.
Why is that though?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Then I
You
feel
just,
like
It's
I'm
the
not lying.
reception, isn't it? It's the reception that you get, I think, you know, saying like, it just doesn't...
Because people do look at you in
Yeah,
a certain
it
way,
just
don't
doesn't
they?
drop
And like,
right.
Yeah.
and you want them to know you first, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, and by the way, that is
Yeah.
what I do. I'm Izzy or Joy or Ash,
Yeah.
Ryan, you know, like, and then that's what I do. Because otherwise, if you put that in, then people couldn't be like,
The judgment
Yeah.
from you,
yeah.
So we're all essentially the same. We all worry about what everybody else thinks of us.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that you would be proud and just say, yeah, I'm a
I must
police officer.
say-
Or maybe might not, because of obviously the seriousness that you're dealing with when it comes to individuals. So you'd kind of keep a lot of things.
I must say, it's changed. The way I am now is very different to where I am than then. Like, I'm very proud and happy to say I'm a police officer now. Like, I have changed immensely, because I feel like I've got something to be really proud about. I'm really proud about what the organisation is doing. I know it's not there, it's not perfect, but I'm quite proud of what the people around me are doing, what we're doing to try and make change. I love that, and it does make me proud to stand for something. And I do. I think we need more representation, and it'd just be amazing to see. So now I do stand up and say, yeah, I'm a police officer. Do you know what I mean?
And I do echo that. I don't think it's not like I wouldn't hide what I do by any means, but certainly as an initial interaction, that wouldn't be the first thing I put out there, because I want to gauge my audience as well. And I suppose if we were from like we're from a uniform unit, the three of us, so you know everything we do is overt, so we don't have anything secret or sneaky. Like if we were working on a covert unit where you're dealing with things that are you can't speak about, then that would be different, but that's not the reason.
yeah.
Okay. So how many black police officers are there in the Met?
1,147, approximately.
And how many... So say that again, sorry.
About 1,147, so just over 1,000.
And
black
how many
police officers.
officers are there in the Met?
32,000, approximately.
Okay, so that's a massive...
Yeah. Hence
Huge.
why we need more people to come in.
Wow, I never
It's
knew
not-
that it was...
Yeah, it's
So-
that.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, it's this is why we're saying, and as a black police officer myself, really the community, we need the community to get involved, because, you know, I can't emphasize enough how it's easy to kind of throw stones from the outside, if you like, or to, you know what I mean, throw criticism from the outside. But we need you inside to make that difference.
To
'cause
affect
the value,
change,
yeah,
to make it
the
happen.
value that we can bring, the value that ethnic minorities can bring to the organisation is immense. Do you know what I mean? There's so much. A lived experience is so valued. You know, it's got so much to offer, so much to give, I think, to the Met, that it's like people, you know, I think people underestimate how much they've got to give. And that's why we're just like saying to, you know, come in to make that change. Everyone wants to see change.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, everyone's fed up, aren't they? Everyone's fed up with the negative narrative. We want to make change. So it's like, come in, come and join. Do you know what I mean? It's been as open as it is now, just the whole process of joining. Do you know what I mean? You go on the website, applying. the whole processes that are in place, everything it's been, I think, as easy as it's ever been to reach out to our communities to get them involved. So yeah, we need.
Why do you think? Why do you lot? Does anyone know why it's so little?
It's this. How long have you got, basically?
Yeah.
It would be. I think, in a nutshell, I'll be honest. There's always been a taboo with talking to the police, in terms of difference between my friends who were black and white. Black officers always, and my black friends were always like, we don't talk to police. You're snitching, this, that, and that. And there's always been that taboo, and I saw that from the difference between the friends who I still talk to now, the ones that don't talk to me. You can see it quite clearly that people just don't like. I think they're just scared of the police. It just seems to be we don't work with the police. You don't get involved with the police or anything else like that. So it's certainly a taboo which I've never understood. I've been a part of it.
Do you think
but
history's got a massive part to play in that?
Yeah. So I definitely, the stuff that happened in Brixton, but we're talking before my lifetime, and it's certainly we do need to change. Something does need to change, sort of thing. So, we tend to get judged on the actions that have happened way before my time of even being alive. Like I mentioned about Stephen Lawrence, unfortunately, and stuff like that. But I was born in 1992, and that happened in 1991. So it's 1993 actually. I was 1 year old. But it's just hard. It has got better over the last 5 years, I'd say. The numbers have certainly increased. Yeah. But the way I see it is you can't change if you think there's a problem with the organisation, you can't change something from the outside. You can only change it from within. Yeah. So, and then you can actually see what the problems are. If you still feel there are problems, and then you can improve. Like, I've got 31 years left of my career before I can see my pension, and I'm hoping by that 31st year that race is no longer a discussion. Personally, it's a big ask, but yeah,
it is hard. And I think it is. There is a taboo. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that hence why we are saying about our friends and people, because it's got a negative narrative attached to it. It has got stigma attached to it. But that's why we're trying to do the work that we're doing, and even internally as black officers, do you know what I mean? We've got networks, we've got different things going on within the organisation to really promote us as black police officers and really bring some empowerment. Do you know what I mean? So people can sort of look in and see that actually we can change, but there is a realistic taboo. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to,
Yeah. But the only way is to learn it for yourself, rather than, like you said, like history. Yeah, there's been some like awful events in history, and kind of, like with what's portrayed in the media, or even like on TV, like there's always, it always shows police that are either dodgy or bad apples. But the majority, the vast majority, are not like that. But the only way, rather than sort of like that self-biasing, when you keep seeing things that are negative, self-affirming bias, like come in and see it and make it change, and you'll see that it's not, what you think it, as bad as you think it is, or what it is, like the only way to make it a better place and even up that disparity is to join. Like there's only one way for it to happen.
I think it's like when we obviously explained that we're from the territorial support group, and like people use the phrase bully van and stuff like that, and that's there, and I understand why that phrase exists, and I understand through history of where that phrase came from, but as that passes down through generations and people talk and stuff, I think people don't sometimes forget, like, that phrase is not relevant anymore to what we do. I understand where it came from, and it comes from the history of some parts of the police force, but it doesn't exist anymore. But because people still use the phrase, because that's just kind of what you associate when you see a blue van with, or when you see our old silver carriers, people associate it with it without maybe thinking about the impact of that word, or actually what it means now, and is it still relevant?
So
and then moving forward from that, because like the others have said, you might use that word, but actually come and have a chat with us, and then we might actually dispel everything. Just have a chat with us. Come for a ride along. Even if we see people in the street, just come and approach us. Like, a hand on heart, I can say, I think certainly anyone that I work with at the moment, we're so approachable, and we're quite happy to talk to anyone. Yeah, just because it makes our lives easier. I don't want to have to get in confrontation with people. Like, some of our days are really long. Like yesterday, we worked for 15 hours. I don't want to have to argue with people all day. I'd rather just talk to people and and see their point of view, and then hopefully they can kind of see our point of view, because we've all got different experiences and we've all got things that we can learn from each other, absolutely. And I think we just need to kind of find that ground.
I think some people are just focused on the past, and the past is always good. It's always good to learn from the past, but maybe moving on from that and helping rewrite the future sort of thing and building that relationship up. So that's the reason why we're here, basically. So, yeah.
I think the law essentially makes things a lot more harder, because living in London and dealing with police officers, and we touched on obviously the bully van scenario, and you know, me as a black man walking down the street, there could be any kind of suspicion, and you have to use your discretion on why you pull somebody over. But then when you've got 9, it doesn't matter if it's male or female officers jumping out on you, it still holds that stigma. Actually, it's still a bully van because there's 9 officers around you. When essentially, when you say you're approachable, it's a lot harder to approach an officer if you've got a crowd of people. It's like with anything, isn't it? Like if you've got 9 people coming up to you all at the same time, it's kind of like, hold on, what's going on here? And you're in defense mode at that point.
Of course.
Straight away, you're going to get into that defense mode. Do you feel like there's other ways that you could approach a situation, or is there new tactical ways that are taught within the police force?
So we've seen that, and to be honest, I think when you've got 9 officers on a carrier like we work on, I think a lot of them feel guilty that they have to be out doing something rather than sitting in the like proving their worth, basically, rather than sitting on the carrier whilst one person stops. So that's why a lot of people do come out, because it's not to try and mob-handed people. It's just like, well, I feel bad because my colleagues at the front of the bus are talking to someone and I'm sitting here not talking to someone, sort of thing, or stopping someone or arresting someone. So we have seen that, and as a supervisor on those, it's been called as a bully vans, a TSG though, I look at how many officers are out per person. So the way I look at it is, it'll be, if there's one person there, I'll have 2 officers out. So those 2 officers we have something called the cover officer, and we have someone engaging. So if, for instance, Ryan's there talking to someone, he's the person he's engaging, he's having a conversation. Now that could be from anything, and the other cover officer's there to make sure they're not going to get injured, sort of thing. And that's, as far as those 2-to-1 ratios is, don't get me wrong, if you have someone that's completely not a giant and they're going to have to come in, you're going to need some more officers. But yeah, I think it disappoints me when I see loads of numbers and people swarming around, because that doesn't look good. Now, there probably is a reason behind that, but it doesn't look good. And we know that, and we're learning from that. And we just, especially with COVID as well, you don't need 9 people breathing down your face, do you? Like, it's not good, is it? So yeah, so it's certainly something that we know, and it's certainly something that's been fed down to the units and the officers. It's just,
I think it's been fed across the whole organisation. Like we said, we're making change, and so we're looking for better ways to engage, better engagements, and a lot of the feedback is about how police do engage with the community. Do you know what I mean? That it's like, oh, you're not having conversations with us and things like that. And like Ryan said, you know, it's everybody known, but you've got, you know, with 32,000, that's a lot of police officers. Do you know what I mean? And it's getting this message. It's going to take a while to get that message across, but that is what's happening internally now, is really just showing people, look, this is how we engage, this is what we do, and really getting our black officers and staff and other ethnic minorities to really be themselves within the organisation, so that can be an influence on people and when they make decisions and whatever. Because if you're seeing your colleagues and, you know what I mean, you're seeing your community effectively within your organisation, do you know what I mean, that you can glean and learn off. So it's really people having that understanding. I think that is what we're doing in the organisation, actually learning and acknowledging the past as well, because you know, the past is the past, and we want to move on, but we do acknowledge as well that this has had an impact on people's lives, and that does affect the way that we engage with people. And so it's getting people to actually understand, acknowledge the past. We're not saying, do you know what I mean, everyone needs to relive it, but definitely we're acknowledging it, I think, as an organisation, and having that understanding.
So how do we deal with bad apples? So essentially, you know, like if I do a crime and someone's with me, they would say, well, you know, in accessory, you know, you was there, so, you know, you could get slapped with the book. So how do we deal with bad apples within the police force, you know? An officer's doing something wrong, that he shouldn't or she shouldn't be doing, you know, bending the rules for themselves. How do you lot deal with that? Is that...
Shall I answer?
Yeah,
I'm
go
happy.
on.
Okay, right. So it's
Died.
it's certainly so the way it's we're now promoting. So from the commissioner down, we're promoting what we look at as learning objectives and learning from mistakes, sort of thing. So from maybe what might have happened in the past, if an officer had made a mistake, keep it quiet and you could sort of get away with it, sort of thing. So as a supervisor, when I'm out on the street, when I watch people doing stop and searches, I know if they've done something wrong, and if I don't do something about it, I'm the first to lose my job or get the reparation. And I've got to pay my mortgage, so I'm certainly not going to let that happen. So in terms of the bad apples, it's certainly, if there are there, and there's 32,000, and I'm not going to suggest that all 32,000 officers are perfect, because we're certainly not, and I'm certainly not perfect. But when there is a problem, and if there is officers that have done a problem, they are promoted to say, do you know what, hands up, this is issue, and then they'll look at it. If they keep something quiet and try and sweep it under the rug, that's when officers are, and you'll see the dismissals, that's when they're fired. And they're got rid of. Or they got the big disciplinary actions and stuff like that.
It depends on the level of bad apple that you're talking as well. If someone's made a genuine and honest mistake, but they've messed up, like they have, they've decreased public confidence, like they've done a stop and search maybe, but it wasn't, they didn't engage very well maybe with the kid they stopped, then that's a learning objective, and that's what, like, as supervisors, that's when we would make sure that they are educated, they learn, and then they never do it again, and that's a learning objective. There are ways, there's disciplinary ways to deal with people if they are not conducting themselves properly. And then we have internal units as well. We've got Right Line, which is internally you can basically report wrongdoing if you see it or hear it, and then that's an internal unit that deals with that.
So is that dealt with discreetly? So essentially, as an officer, you can phone up and say,
so the Right Line,
done wrong, without you actually getting put in it. Because essentially, if you're an officer and you're out on patrol with someone and they do something wrong, you don't want that spreading throughout the force. And now it's like, you're the one, you're going to be...
That. But I don't think there's an appetite for it anymore. I don't think there's we have no tolerance for people that don't conduct themselves properly. Like, really. And I think it is changed, because I know, things are even different from when I joined, and I've only been in 20 years, but it's not okay. Like, none of us tolerate it. Like, if somebody, used inappropriate language or behaved badly, it is like, you don't do that. And they'll get called out openly about it, wouldn't they?
Because if Izzy did something right now that was inappropriate, I'm just as guilty because I haven't challenged her.
Yeah, like you
said. So that is it.
Accessory.
So it's just you are just as guilty because you haven't done anything. And if it's felt like you broken those codes of conduct, that's it. You're in big trouble, basically.
I think it's a great thing that we're are here today, and we are trying to break down the barriers between the community and the police force. We've got probably years and years of it to old bad stigma and bad habits essentially to break down. I've had dealings with unfair dealings with police officers, and that leaves a bad taste in my mouth essentially. So you end up having that kind of like, and that passes on to the next generation. Or essentially you can't talk to them because you can't trust them. What would you say when it comes to bridging the gap within the community? What is the number one thing that, if you used to all have one thing, what would it be that you believe that could bridge the gap between the community and the police force?
I think for me, it's all this. It's communication. It's showing people human side, being transparent. That's what I think it is, because, as much as there are bad apples. Out of 32,000, there are going to be, and there are people who do stuff and it brings damage. And so I think it would be good when you can create communication and a relationship with the community, that when they do have that bad experience, they know there's somebody else they can kind of go to and be like, hey, I know this police officer here, look, this happened to me, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? And we tell, go and complain or do this or do that. Do you understand what I mean? That there's a relationship there where the community feel that they can come to us. Because there is, in any organisation you go to, you are going to have people that are not very good people. Do you know what I mean? Blatantly, that's going to happen. But how do we change that? We try and, what these guys have said, we try and spread that around the whole organisation, because there are going to be units and departments that aren't like that do maybe see people acting inappropriately and just turn a blind eye. You know, that's going to happen. But we need to kind of spread the message, and this is where communication comes in. So for me, I think it's that communication piece and our community being able to communicate with us and us having that relationship.
Yeah. I think so. I think like more MO7, like our task force group, is so open to getting and engaging with the community, and like Mounted is a bit different because we've always had that anyway. People love horses or dogs, you know, like, and so the community always come and talk to us. Oh wow, people generally like animals because, you know, like, they didn't choose to be in those roles, right? We chose them because they're really good at their job, so we work with them. But like I've found that's a massive conversation breaker, and like I can get into communities that like if a TSG bus went in, then they might be not receptive, not TSG, sorry, community might not be receptive to like guys on the bus, but like they'd be really open to come and talking to us on horseback. I think openness and transparency, definitely. Like when things have gone wrong as well, be open about when it's gone wrong for us. And Task Force again are working really hard at that, and our senior leadership team, like if there's a resented stop or something, then there's contact made with them. They'll go and they'll meet them in person and work it through what happened in that stop, you know, why it went wrong or why it was felt like that, explain police motivations. And I'm sure you'll touch on what's happening now you're going into communities beforehand. I'll leave it to that.
So our SLT, straight from SLT downwards, are telling us, we're going to give you time now to go and do more community engagement. So that comes in the form of, we do the rugby projects with the schools, we do the football projects, we do the boxing projects. I literally had one 2 days ago where I had a Q&A session with some people from students from a school in Lewisham. Okay. And they're giving us those opportunities and saying, look, like, go and do this because that is just as important as stop and search. That is just because if we can prevent people from carrying a knife, if I go and stop and search someone and find a knife, I've done my job. I already think that person who's carrying a knife is too late. It's too late, isn't it? Like they've sort of been lost, haven't they? Mm-hmm. So and they're seeing that now, and I think putting actual effort into the community and getting them to trust us, we're going to get better results. So that is, I'm not suggesting that stop and search is going, but pushing community engagement and actually making an effort with the community and getting paid for it. Like I just think it's a really good positive thing that's happening at the moment, and we've got a good opportunity. Yeah,
I'd echo what everyone says. I think for me, my biggest thing is understanding, and that's a two-way process. We need to understand the needs of the community and the concerns of the community, and historically we've not been good at that. And I think now the organisation is in a place where we're being more honest about that. Whereas, I think, especially as Izzy has said and Joy said, we tended to withdraw into ourselves a little bit because through fear of we've got this wrong and we need to just hide from it. But now it's going out there and going, well, tell us what you want from us. Tell us how you want us to police the community. Tell us what your priorities are. But then equally, I think what is important in that two-way communication is understanding what we're here to do. We've got a job, and I'm not going to sit here. I know we talk about stop and search a lot, and that's because it's our day job. But there is certainly here, and I think on my unit, no one is going to stand there and say stop and search is going to save the world, because it isn't. It is not the tactic that is going to stop all problems. It is one part of a massive solution where we've got to work with everyone, other agencies, we need to work with communities, with schools, with the projects that we now do. And I think it's just everyone having that mutual respect and understanding that if we actually work together and come together and actually talk about our ideas, then we can move forwards. We're not going to have all the ideas. We don't have a monopoly on good ideas. And we just need people to come forward and tell us, like, oh, I've thought about this. I think that might actually really work. And then, you know, we can work it into something.
Because that's from within the community itself. Because then, like, and TSG, every time they're going into a borough now, which has got a problem, so, like, the borough bids for them, for their resources to come and help them with whatever that crime problem is. They go in now first and they go and actually engage with community groups, various working groups there. So, and they say, look, we're coming in 2 weeks or next week we're coming and we're going to be on the ground for 2 weeks. So, and this is what we're going to do. And this is the crime we're here to solve, because we're here as police officers to fight crime and look after people. Like, that is essentially the bottom line of what we're trying to do, reduce crime and increase Londoners feeling safe. Like, that is what we are here to do. And to do that, you can only do it by listening to the people that we're policing and are living in London and then feedback off them. So
Yeah, I think there's a massive disconnection. I'm in agreement to, you know, the ideas of obviously community, going into communities. You said you're doing the boxing, the rugby. That's really, really good. But there's definitely a disengagement when it comes to police officers in the community, because I believe that a lot of police officers, I don't know if this is just something that I've got in my head, so
That's right.
feel free to, you know, to correct me, but a lot of police officers come out, they're from out of London. And because they're from out of London, there's that disconnection with people that are from London, because there is a difference. You know, people that live out of London tend to live in houses, little gardens. You know, this sounds crazy, but this is what is put out there. Where in London, you know, they're living in tower blocks. You know, mum and dad has to go to work every day, so, you know, to feed their kids, and their kids are essentially brought up by the government. You know, you go to school, you go to after school club. After school club, you're watching the boys and girls play out, and then you get yourself into, you know, into problems. Do you not ever think about the deeper issues that, because essentially you're like at the bottom end. The bottom end is you arrest someone when someone's done something wrong, but there was a lead up to why that person chose to make those decisions. So, for instance, a young man or young woman that chooses to carry a knife, that started way before that even got to that stage.
Yeah, they're not carrying it for fun. That's their option.
Mum and dad wasn't there. You know, you're lucky enough if you got your parents to keep guiding you as you're, you know, as you grow. You know, and that's what we all hope for. You know, your mum and dad's still there as the pinnacle. That you know, I want to be similar to my mum and my dad. But we're not living in that kind of community, in that kind of society at the moment, where mum and dad are struggling, and it's taken two. You know, historically it was the man goes to work, the woman stays at home and takes care of the children. Now we're not living in that world no more. It's both parents have got to go to work to keep the roof over your head, and that's why, and something that I believe that this is the reason why kids are choosing the choices that they're choosing.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have the solution for that, because I think a lot of it is. I don't want to go too much into it, but a lot of it is social in terms of what the government are doing and everything else. So in terms of actual police officers on the ground, what we can do is to have those interactions at an early stages. So each school will have a schools officer attached to that school. Okay, we're now getting pushed to do even more engagements. You'll have officers going in there. No, don't get me wrong. When you're young and impressionable at 7, like, you see a police officer, you want to be a police officer. You see someone on the TV being a Formula 1 driver, then the next day you want to be a Formula 1 driver. So we're looking at people which are at the 10, 11, starting at year 7 sort of thing. That's where the impressions are, and that's where the impressions need to be made sort of thing. And it's not just saying, look, this is what we are, but then you actually start giving them careers advice, saying, look, like, this is what can happen. This is the dangers that are happening. You need to try and avoid that, and give them a clear path. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult one, because you said about mum and dad not being there, and if they're lucky, because sometimes it's just one parent, if not no parents. So
I think though, like, sorry Ash, like just in relation to like police officers coming out not being from London, now we're doing a recruitment drive again. For London, they need to be London based as a criteria for joining. But even like, I've worked with a lot of colleagues, from my personal experience, who weren't born and raised in London. But they've got a bit. Humans are adaptable, right? And we learn. So there's no reason that person, just because they might have come from a more privileged background, you know, i.e., like having both their parents around, that they can't then empathise and police someone who's from a single parent background, or who has both parents but are absent. You know, like, they're still humans. Like, again, while we're here, and you've got to kind of give the good ones the kudos that they can understand, and like any human can, and feel it from another person's point of view. So
I think it's helped. So I think, you know, like Izzy was saying, they brought in the London residency criteria because they realised that there was something in it, there was something there. So it's given people the opportunity to apply from London, where you've got more ethnic minorities, so it gives those people a chance to come in and do, and also it gives that cultural shift as well, that cultural change, you know, within the organisation. So I think having this opportunity, and we've done it before, we had a similar London residency criteria maybe about, oh God, how many years ago? Maybe
10?
4 or 5. Was it 10 years
I think
ago?
it was
maybe.
a while ago.
So, and we had it then. Do you know what I mean? And so
It was very specific though, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
was more specific than this now.
and you can still apply out of London if you're I believe it's like if you're doing sort of detectives and stuff. But if you're coming in as a PC, then you need to be from within London. So the Met have recognised that there is something there.
It's been identified.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
There is
And
a
Yeah.
visibly,
Exactly.
you know, you need a visible role model, you know,
Yeah.
to encourage more people in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's good about learning, about understanding, about hearing the voices being heard and going, right, you know what, maybe we need to switch it up a bit. And it's like, yeah, okay, let's switch it up. You know what I mean? And it's having that adaptability and being able to do that. Do you know what I mean? If we want to see more ethnic minorities, then we might need to switch it up a bit, which the Met are doing. So you know.
But you can't get people to join if they don't want to. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
They've got to want to
So
be.
these we can change it and say, you know, just in London.
Yeah.
But unless Londoners and people from the community want to join,
So true.
you can
Yeah.
put restrictions on you like. But I think we're due to get about 6,000 officers in this new uplift, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think it's talking about.
Yeah.
So I just can't see
It's a big
6,000
thought.
Londoners wanting to join.
I guess with what you lot are doing at the moment is great. You know, you're going
Yeah.
into what is left of the youth clubs and
Sad,
Exactly.
man.
Yeah.
within the community.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, there's many problems and there's never going to be one solution.
No.
And you know, we got youth clubs closing left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've
This
got
is why
more
we need
housing
to-
estates going up, regardless
Yeah.
of how nice they look.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
still
Housing
yeah,
estates,
exactly.
you know.
And this is why it's so important that we work. I think Ash mentioned it before, but we work with all different people in the community as well. So we work with youth workers. We work. Do you know what I mean? And we do that engagement because there's people that have a lot of influence. Like I was talking to a guy the other day who runs a youth group campaign up in Croydon. And he's got a load of youth that have come from all different backgrounds and all different things. And it's like, it's working with those people who have that influence on the young, because sometimes us alone, you know, won't have that effect. But you know what, if we're working with a youth worker, that he can deliver it in a different way, but pull those people in and get some. And there's a lot of people in the Met now who have come from bad backgrounds, who have not had the best thing in life, who have fallen in with the law before, but have become police officers.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was even a possibility.
People think that. People think, oh, I can't apply it, you know, got in trouble, got caution, got this. And don't get me wrong, do you know, if you've been really stupid and you've got, you know, some criminal shit, you know. Yeah. But what it's about is, it's about your integrity. So it's like, if you're going to apply for the police and something has gone wrong, or you've got members of your family maybe who have been involved in crime or whatever, put it down on your form. It's about integrity. It's about being honest. You know, we're police officers. So at the end of the day, somebody's looking at your application form and you've not told the truth, you're going to get vetted anyway, so that will come out. And if it comes out that this stuff has happened and you haven't declared it, it's going in the bin.
But they understand that you grow. Like, what you do as a kid is very
It's-
different from what you do,
You make
like we are now,
mistakes.
like grown-ups.
So essentially, you're allowed to change your stripes. So as
Yeah,
long as you
Why not?
declare it,
Yes, that's what it's about. Yeah,
you're allowed
that's
to
what
Yeah.
Just because you made a mistake once, you're not tarnished for life.
Yeah.
Like one life experience can make you like go down a path for a while, and then when you steer yourself back, if you want to actually be a police officer and look after your community and do all those things, you can still do it.
Yeah, some of the best. I knew an inspector. It might even be a chief inspector now on my borough, who was in care, and he lived his life through the system basically. A white officer lived his life through the system. And he's now inspector, maybe chief inspector. And there's quite a few people. Another girl I met who, again, I work with over at Redbridge. Again, you know, she went through the care system and is a police officer. So these are, you know, I think sometimes there's a bit of a, a myth that you can't, you know, you have to be perfect and pristine.
squeaky clean.
But it's, you know, I don't think, you know, I'm not squeaky clean. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's like we're not perfect. You know, none of us are perfect. But one thing I know is I knew I wanted to help people. Do you know what I mean? And that was, you wanted to help people. You wanted to be honest. Do you know what I'm saying? And transparent. And that's what you need. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that was even
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm going to be signing.
This is why we're here.
You know what I mean?
Right. So have you ever felt scared when on patrol? I guess that would be for Ryan and Ashley and Izzy, because you're no longer.
No.
Yeah,
no.
you're a nice comfy chair at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone off.
You're gone, yeah.
You get different kinds of sort of fear, I would say, especially in the role we do at the moment. I think the one thing that always sort of you have in the background is we work in big groups. So as we've kind of already discussed, we work with 6-7 other colleagues. So I think the situations that I go into now, I'm a little bit less worried about because my mates are there and I know that we look after each other. And you know, that's one of the key things is we just want to go home at the end of the day. Regardless of what I end up doing in my shift, I've got a family to go back to. We've all got people that, loved ones that we want to go back to. But there have been times, like I remember a few years ago on an estate somewhere in London, and I remember being just me and one other colleague, and we were surrounded by a gang of sort of like 10, 12 people. And I honestly stood there thinking, this is going to be it. I'm not going to walk away from this. It was a situation, and it was a nonsense situation. We'd just been called by a member of the public because they'd reported some people who were hanging around a car, smoking some drugs. They were driving the car, and there was just a bit of worry that they might crash, might hurt someone. So we've gone down just to deal with that, just sort of public safety, try and help people. And it's turned into this big situation where I know I'm on an estate that's very difficult to get into, and I've just got to try and hold my ground and defend myself for a little bit. And luckily, just a bit of talking and trying to engage with people, obviously wait a few minutes, and then the sea of blue lights arrives and you were right, people, they disappeared and that was it. But that's probably one of the worst situations that I've ever been in, when I thought, I might, something's going to happen here and I'm going to have no control over it.
Yeah. There's quite a few demonstrations which I've done that have got a bit like, we've got no kit on, we haven't got any of like our protective kit, and bottles are being thrown in, bits of metal being thrown in, like traffic cones. I don't even know where they got the traffic cones from, but yeah. So where do they come from? In the middle of London. But yeah, they start throwing in, they're hitting you, and I'm like, I could probably get seriously hurt here, sort of thing. So there is, in no situation, you can't really talk your way out, but there's definitely a risk, even the hidden risk of like coronavirus and stuff, especially in the early, in March, where like the stats and
we didn't know about it.
People even know about it now. I think we know about it a lot more, but we were still going out having to do our day-to-day job whilst people were indoors, and it's just the risk. So there's been times I've been scared, but
And yourself, as you're on a horse.
Me and my horse. Yeah. I do feel braver with my horse. I don't get me wrong. Before I joined the mounted branch, I had to do foot duty for like 7 years. I just echo on the back of what Ash said about the COVID thing. I've got a young family as well, and I remember thinking in March and April, like, oh my God, like I because I chose to be a police officer, I may be now killing my kids, is effectively, if I'm being dramatic, when we knew so little about it. That's where I thought, and that is my fault because I chose to be a police officer and I have no choice. I have to come into work. And so that is probably in a way the most scared I have ever felt. And otherwise it is demos again, but I've never felt actually scared, but I do have like an out of body experience every time I go to a full on big old demo, because I think if I actually remained in my logical head, you would go, I am not standing here and going into that. But most of the time I just like have this, I rise above it and think, this is going to be fine, just got to get my tactical head on and it'll be all right.
Now this question's aimed at the females. How do you lot deal with being police officers and do you feel vulnerable as females, like being out there on patrol? Or is it just like, you just get on with it, it's just like, this is the work that I do, I've got to do it?
I think when I was on patrol, it didn't bother me when I was a female, to be honest.
Can I just interject? How tall are you?
I
don't know this, right? But look, dangling here. I am 5'1.5".
Wow.
You're 5 foot.
You
flat.
gave the half an inch.
I have to give the half an inch. They're very important. But no, it's never really. No, it hasn't bothered me about being a female, to be honest. I don't know. I guess I'm quite resilient because I had kids and stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's just coming to the job as a police officer. I think when you become a police officer, you know what it comes with. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, I don't feel like you're deceived. Do you know what I mean? When you get onto them streets. And sometimes, to be honest, I felt people were a bit more open to me as a female. When I was dealing with members of the public, if I go with my colleagues, sometimes it'd be a lot easier for me to talk to people as a female. They had a lot more respect for me sometimes than my male colleagues, I'd find. But no, I didn't see any disadvantage. There was no disadvantages to being a female, I found.
Yeah, I agree. I never really felt I was different. I just felt I was like one of the family. Like I genuinely didn't. There's been a couple of things since, and I know, like for shield run, you have to get to a certain distance carrying a shield at a certain time. And it did make me realise, all right, well, I'm not as fast. And that is the difference between me being a girl and some of the boys that did it. Some of the girls are absolutely rapid. I mean, I was quite fast. I used to run marathons, but like that did make me think, okay, well, there's a difference between males and females. But I never felt more vulnerable in anything I've done. And I never felt I haven't been afforded the same opportunities by any means. I think it's a really level playing field.
Okay.
I love
so what's the requirements to be a police officer? For those that might want to join, what's like you spoke about carrying a shield. Is there a fitness level? Because sometimes, I've got like this vision in my head that, they're bald, fat, can't run. I could run.
You've got one bit.
Circles.
Yeah, I was going to say you're not talking about me, are you? Because I can do this up if you need to. So the standard's 5.4 on the bleep test at the moment.
So you have to run between 2 points.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So a simple bleep test 5.4.
Do you still do the weights?
No.
No, I think the weights have gone. We used to do a push and pull when I started.
Push and pull, we
Don't
don't do
10 years
We
ago.
have to do a grip test.
Yeah.
Don't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
And a push and pull,
Don't
but we
have to
don't do that
No,
anymore.
that's
Yeah.
gone as well.
I'm not too sure exactly
I think
what
we'd
the
have to check
standard
on the
is.
essential criteria.
Yeah.
Running in medical, really, I think.
Yeah.
It's just a general
Yeah.
good level of fitness.
And eyesight.
Yeah, your eyesight. Obviously, you can wear glasses, contact lenses. You can have, I think, minor health conditions and whatnot. You just have to. It's all, again, as
You
Roy
do
saying,
a
it's just
base-
honesty.
What's that Apollo test? You have to do like a base test, don't you? And you answer a certain amount of questions.
Yeah.
And it probably has got to do with being a Londoner in it as well. And
Yeah.
can you do this? That,
And it says if you go onto our Met website and careers, it will tell you all the requirements that you need. But in all honesty, Jeremy, if you want to keep London safe and you believe that you have that integrity and that honesty, this is what your passion that you've got, apply.
What's the starting
Yeah,
wage?
So, no,
Because
it's more.
everyone on this couch said when you first
It's
started,
more, yeah.
Lil was on a good wage.
So,
I was waiting for you to
24.
say
When I
that.
joined, it was 24.
So
was
it's
underweight.
changed. Yeah, so it was an issue. It was a lot lower. I was actually looking at this before we came here. So recently, now what we've started, I think it's a drive to professionalise the police force a little bit more and to give people more opportunities because
The degree holder thing.
yeah. So you can join and you can do 30 years as a police officer, but depending on what you do, you may not really come out of any qualifications or anything you can write down on paper. Like in our world, it sounds great, but we could say it to you, you'll have no idea what we're on about. But now, if you want to join, you just need I think it's just an English GCSE and a maths GCSE at a C or above, and then you can join into a 3-year program, all fully funded by the police. You don't have to pay a penny of it, and you'll come out the other end as a full-time, fully qualified police officer, and you'll also come out with a degree. So it's the first time we've ever done it, and all the police officers are doing it now. So when you're training, you'll be on 30 grand. When you come out, you'll be on 33 grand. And then by the time you've done 7 years service, you'll be on 48. So it goes up really quickly. And you've come out with a degree that you've not paid for.
Yeah.
It's definitely more money.
And
than
then
that.
you can come in, if you've got a degree, you can come in straight as a degree holder as well and do it like that. Because to the PEQF, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So body cams, something that's been introduced over the last, 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
Best thing we ever got.
Good.
Best thing we ever got.
Well, you women have probably been getting a little bit more on the stigma, I don't know, not stigma, but a little bit more action on the body cams. Because people are actually taking their cameras out and recording, going, oh, this one looks good. I've seen it on the gram. I don't know if you guys seen it on the gram. Where, you go on an estate and the young boys go, oh, wow, she's all right, ain't she? She's pretty good.
And they flock towards and want to speak to her.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if the lads got that too. That ain't been put out. I don't know if you've ever pulled over a woman and she's gone, bloody hell, he's fit.
My fiance works with me, so I'm keeping quiet. So yeah, that's it.
All right, so if you had all the resources possible, what would you change in the communities and what would you change in your police force?
Good question.
I'd do more neighbourhood policing, 100%. I think if we could put more officers on neighbourhood policing where you're doing foot patrol in schools, out just talking to people. Like you could walk down Brixton High Street and you could see 4 or 5 police officers just all the time, like buses really. You could just chat to them whenever you wanted. I think that's where policing is at its key. I think it's the
and
most
that's
important.
in the force and also in the community. So you would say
Yeah.
that is a double edge
Yeah.
kind of answer. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where it all stems from. If we talk to the community and get the trust of the community, and we understand the problems and concerns and their priorities, then we can deal with it from there.
Do you think discretion? We will get back to that question, but do you think discretion plays a massive part in that? So essentially, if you want people to be able to talk to you more, then you've got to be a little bit more. Use your discretion in a more of a better way. So essentially, if somebody's saying, actually, you know what, I've been caught up in something, I no longer want to be caught up in it. You know, a lot of people are scared that actually they're going to get in trouble for it, because obviously the law, you have to uphold the law. Where back in the days, this might be films, but you know, a little boy goes to the corner shop, he thieves a Mars bar and he gets a clip round the ear, gets dragged back to his mum, and he's in trouble, but he doesn't have to go and do fingerprints, get processed etc. And I feel like we've lost that discretion, discretion of actually saying, do you know what, I'm going to deal with this way, and I get it, because obviously if there's got to be a little bit, it's got to be quite rigid, because otherwise you get people that become rogue. They just do what they want to do. But I think discretion is definitely key within the communities, because what you're asking for from the community is that we want to talk to you and we want this trust. But then sometimes, as everyone does, you've said it yourselves, that you know, people get themselves in problems and situations that probably served them at that point, but not going to serve them as they get older. So where do you feel that plays a?
I agree with you. I think it's kind of gone in sort of waves, but I think a police officer's discretion is one of the most important tools they have. I totally agree with you. I think if you can have a conversation with someone and deal with something in an appropriate manner, then that's fine. It can be dealt with there. There's obviously, as you pointed out, there are lines that once lines are crossed, then there's only certain things we can do, or we have to do certain things. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that we should be able to have conversations with people, and if there are little issues and things like that, then
on the grand scale of things,
it's not the worst thing in the world. Bigger. But if that is going to deal with the bigger problem, then we should, sort of give a little to get a lot, maybe is the way to look at it.
Yeah. Yourself, Ash?
It's a tough one. I'd say more officers in the neighbourhood, definitely. But the problem with that comes if you see more cars down your road, you're like, what's happened here? Something's gone on bad, rather than actually thinking it might just be a good fitting sort of thing. And so, certainly more officers in the community. If you know your local officer's name, then you can build up that relationship with them, sort of thing. It's certainly hard in our job, because tonight we might be sent anywhere across the whole of London, because we're a pan-London resource. Okay. But with the neighbourhood policing, if you know your local officer's name, and you can then say, do you know what, I've actually got a problem with my son, he's done this, and then they can have a conversation with you, have a conversation with the son or the girl, or whoever it is, and just say, look, like this is where you're going wrong. And that's where the discretion is, I think. Yeah. And I think that is, as you mentioned, discretion. I think that's the power of conversation rather than just banging an interview. We have got stuff like that goes on, so they might be arrested, but then rather than put them through to a judge, we send them off to what we call a youth referral stuff. It's a yachts referral, so they'll have a sit-down conversation with a police officer and social workers and stuff like that, and say, look, like, why have you gone and stolen £5.99 from Primark sort of thing? And they'll go through and look at the problems to try and prevent that from happening, because we don't need to give people criminal records, because it's just...
because we're seeing it a little bit more in America at the moment, where, you see the local officer going in and playing
I think I saw the same...
and doing races and that helps within the community, especially with the youngsters. Actually, you know what, I'm going to, Officer John's going to come around and we're going to kick ball for half an hour, and he feels free to do so.
So that certainly does happen. Unfortunately, unfortunately, COVID has sort of put an end to everything. But once, hopefully, we sort of see the light and we're sort of on the road out, you will see us going in, having conversation with kids, playing football, playing basketball, because they can actually see us in the community. And if we're seen in the community, the ones that are actually causing the trouble won't be around there, if that makes sense. So you avoid police like the plague, don't they? So, yeah.
It starts when the kids. It's got to start with kids. Like, and Ash and Ryan was saying, like, stop and search, yeah, to an extent, because you'll get a lot of weapons off the streets and you will reduce crime hugely by doing that. But until we change the whole philosophy, which is when they're little, and that's little because, like you kind of said earlier, like, there's a family philosophy and histories, you know, like word of mouth. Like, if you had a bad experience and you tell your little boy, don't go speak to the police. Like, we have to start changing what everyone understands as the police, but we can't change it just by saying, yeah, it's okay, they're all right. Like, we actually have to be that, so we live it for kids. So if I had more money, I would open more of the youth centres again, get kids in a safe place where they can be in groups of friendship groups that are safe and contained to them, and they don't have to end up either on the streets and working in groups that are dangerous and places they don't want to be, and have unhappy childhoods, you know. And so, yeah, definitely more foot duty, more people on the streets, but it's getting it back into the schools, and we've got some really good schools engagement working, but it needs to be bigger and more cops and more working with the kids when they're in these youth groups.
Yeah, I think definitely more programs in the Met that will help young kids to come. So we have things called ride-alongs. Ride-alongs where members of the community can come and basically ride along with us as police officers on a normal sort of day, and, you know, what a police officer will go through. And I think investing more in that, so we could have programs from kids at an early age where they could come in, learn about what policing's like, and have that, you know, perspective. I think definitely that's where I put my money again, community, and also, you know, within the police, that we'd have programs for the community where they could learn more about policing. I think that's where I put my money.
Yeah, interesting. So tell us a little bit more about Behind the Badge.
So Behind the Badge is been amazing. It's been really good. So the Behind the Badge was an initiative that came from Dr. Alison Hadari, who's a commander. So she's the most senior black officer in the Metropolitan Police. And she came from Hampshire, and she came to join the Met. And Behind the Badge was an initiative that had been started there, and it was basically police officers going onto just local community stations, local platforms, whatever, and just talking to people about themselves, about the roles within policing, and humanising themselves as police officers. And so, you know, when Mum Hadari, she came here, she was like, this is London. It would be really effective in London, going to our stations, going into our communities, going into our black communities, and talking on, you know, not our normal sort of stations that we hear all the time, but actually our underground, our local one. Do you know what I mean? And just actually going and speaking with our community. And that's what Behind the Badge has been, and that's what we've been doing. So, you know, I've been able to contact all like yourselves and just various different people and connect them up with our police officers. And what we hope is that it's an ongoing thing, that it becomes, you know, a real initiative that the community can engage with as well. And they, you know, we've got loads of police officers, but where we can slowly get to know who we are. Because a uniform that we wear it's a uniform. It's our job. Just like being a banker, being a lawyer, whatever, doctor, it's a job that we have to do. But you know what? When we all go home and we take off our uniforms, we are human beings. We're back to, do you know what I mean, who we are. And even when you are a police officer, you are still human. We're not, we was talking about this coming down, but we're not robots. Do you know what I'm saying? We're humans. You know, it's just like, we are ourselves. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's important that, you know, as a police officer, you do bring yourself to the table, because the whole point is that you're representing the community. So if you're all robots, then you're not really representing anybody. So, you know, that's a really big part of it. So yeah, that's Behind the Badge. So we're just really promoting that. Getting out there, just saying to people, do you know what I mean? Just if you know want to talk to us as police officers, you know, welcome. We've got our invite us. Yeah, we've got our BPNS Instagram, which is the Black Police Network in Strand. We've got our Instagram BPNS Met, and Twitter, or at BPNS Met, on Twitter and Insta. So people just send us a little message or whatever, and we'll bring it.
And they can speak to loads of other people, not just us.
There's loads. There's loads. It's got a choice of 32,000. So you know.
Alright, so we're gonna touch on some. We're gonna burst some bubbles, because essentially there's a lot of myths that tend to run alongside police officers. So we're going to touch with the first one, which is, do police officers eat a lot of donuts?
Oh.
Yeah. It is. It's, yeah.
Well, it's because when people are late, if people are late or they do something, then it's like, right, you're gonna have to get donuts. Come on, get donuts. Where I think that's come from.
It's
our
American.
internal-
It's an American.
Okay, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Not so UK.
Chief Wiggin eating your
Nando's
office mobile
maybe.
phone, yeah.
Nando's.
But it is an internal fine system.
Yeah.
It's how we deal with each other.
Okay, do police officers get tickets, parking tickets,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and even when they're on duty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do police officers think they're perfect?
Well, not these
God,
four.
no.
Yeah.
I can't speak for myself.
Yeah, I won't speak for everyone, but no,
No.
I'd say no.
No.
Okay, is the fitness test too hard for normal people?
No, it's 5.4. I think it's.
I think it's too easy. I'm being honest.
It's quite. That's quite. Do you know? I'm not the fittest person in the world, and I passed.
5.4 is that? I couldn't
It's
tell you the
like-
last time I did a bleep test. Is probably
It's
when I
about
was
3
in
minutes
It's
of
not.
running.
Yeah, it's
not hard.
It's not hard, to be fair. You could do sort of a little bit of practice if you haven't been sort of exercising for a long time. You could probably do a few weeks. Do you know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
running, jogging,
Yeah.
and you'd be fine.
If you can
Have
jog
you ever
for
been?
15
Sorry, go.
if
go
you
on,
can
Izzy.
jog for 15 minutes, you'll be fine. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like little.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
ever been in a situation where you're chasing someone and they just way too quick and you're
Yes.
like, oh, damn.
I have.
Lots of
I
times.
reckon you're
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, well, I work it out. So I'm not catching him in the first 20 metres. There's just no point.
So you just give up. That's it. Like,
I blame the boots and the kit belt. And
It
the,
is heavy.
Yeah,
It's
we've
really
got-
heavy.
I've got about a
belt.
stone. Yeah, about a
how
stone and a
heavy
half.
is that gear altogether?
I'll say it's about a stone and a half. I think adds to us.
a
Yeah.
stone and a half.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
It's a lot.
What's that? 14 pounds is a stone, ain't it? So,
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, that's my excuse anyway.
Okay.
I could beat anyone on a horse though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you could. Yeah. How young do you need to be to start the?
It's
Police
18,
force.
isn't it?
18.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't start before that.
We
You
used
can
to have
apply.
cadets. We've got
Yeah,
cadets,
still got
which is
cadets.
13 to 13 to 18 years old, and that's on all boroughs. We have cadets, and it's a really good inner. And cadets do jobs with us as well. You know, they can come out and do like particularly ceremonial stuff, don't they? They
Yeah.
do like trooping the colour and things like that, and they go out and get full on police experience. But to be a warranted officer,
Okay, police officers aren't allowed tattoos.
It's wrong.
I could
wrong.
take off my jumper and I am
Don't need to
covered.
put it on your hand.
Well, I've got I'm covered.
Okay, so that's
No, they recently
myth.
renewed it a couple of years ago so that you can actually have it on show. Because for
Yeah,
my
they're
whole
covered
service, I've
before.
worn long sleeves.
You had
But-
to have them covered. You could have them, but they had to be covered. But now,
2 years ago, maybe it
Yeah.
changed.
okay. You can't join with a criminal record. I think we've touched on that already.
Yeah,
So
that's wrong.
you can. Police officers always know when someone's lying.
yes, we do.
Is that our public stance? Is it?
You
It's a
learn from
superpower.
experience, right? Maybe when you first join, you might be more gullible.
Yeah.
I think you certainly learn, and you learn quickly, depending on what boroughs you're on and how busy a police officer you are. But I don't know. I reckon I'm pretty good.
Yeah, there's usual twitches, isn't there?
Yeah.
Telltale signs.
We have actual officers who are trained to read body language.
People
So
say lie detectors on.
and that is a tactic that we use.
Do you lot use police? Do you lot use lie detectors?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Not at any
Not that I
level.
know.
We'd have to use it on ourselves.
yeah,
No,
yeah, definitely. Do police officers have stupid nicknames for each other?
Yeah.
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 I don't know
I think
Yeah.
that's from Hendon, isn't it? That follows you through. Just don't ask
think-
us what they are.
I think they evolve. I kept mine from Hendon, but I think a lot of them do
Yeah, I
evolve.
don't. Yeah.
What was yours?
Mine was Queenie because I sound like the one off Blackadder,
Oh,
Miranda Richardson.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no other one. I know.
Yeah.
One. Yeah, it's just silly, aren't they?
Police have a quota of arrests to be made per year.
No.
Definitely not.
So let's touch on the marches. So there's been a few marches this year, last year. The
Last year.
Black Lives Matter,
2020.
the George Floyd march.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! Say his name! Justice!
many different marches. Has any of you lot taken part in any of the marches? How did you feel about it? And at any time did you feel like this is a little bit beyond what you lot want, what you lot have signed up for?
I'm quite happy to be honest. Yeah, so we, as part of the public order unit, which is the TSG, we do the go in and do the problem solving stuff in terms of proactive policing, but our day to day as well is the level 1 public order. So any sort of demonstrations will be there. Yeah, I think during the Black Lives Matter marches and the subsequent marches is the only time in the 10 years I've been a police officer I thought this is not for me. Literally it's the hardest experiences I've had. I'll go into some of them, but just to be there as a police officer just to make sure that people are safe, because you've still got the terrorist threats and everything else, and making sure the road closures are there and everything else. But to have 30 odd people shouting at you that you're not one of us, you're a disgrace, Uncle Tom, all kinds of racial language, it's just it's certainly, I do not get paid enough to do that, and it's just a lot of officers got that, and it's the only time I've ever gone to. Being a supervisor, you go to the supervisor's briefing and they'll say this is our intention, and usually we have like a gold strategy, silver and bronze, and they'll say, look, like this is what we're looking to do, and they'll just say, right, we'll keep the march to this, because they'll have a prescribed area and stuff like that. But during that briefing, it's the only time I've ever been told you need to look after your BAME officers because they are going to be abused.
Wow.
And that is, do you know, I'm probably going to say something controversial. I'd get it. Not feel better about it, but if I'd been abused by someone who's quite clearly a stereotypical racist, you know how we are. I'm not going to stereotype anyone, but you know how they look. I'd sort of understand that, but from your own community,
yeah,
honestly, it was a hard time. You know, I've faced people with knives. I've found people with firearms on them. That is the hardest.
So that stands above all of the other scenarios that you've been in. Yeah. I guess that's it, because it's a lot more of a mental situation, ain't it? And it's kind of like, it's, you know, not everybody will understand why you chose to join the police force, and I guess when they're going at you about the job title that you have,
exactly,
because essentially it's just a title.
But I would agree with that if everyone was getting the abuse. Now, I'll take the abuse because I wear the Met vest sort of thing. Yeah, you sort of understand that sort of comes with the job title. I'm not saying it's right, but you sort of come to the job title. There'd be no difference between the people, 4 of us sitting there, because you're a police officer, people don't like the uniform. And there's going to be people like that, and I will never change that. But people targeting you from the BAME community because you're a BAME officer, as a police officer, trying to serve your community, that was it for me. That is very difficult. I like to think I'm quite strong-willed, quite outgoing and everything else, but it just, honestly, the emotion's there. And a lot of people got a lot of stick for it. Yeah.
I guess I couldn't even put myself in those shoes.
I'll give you a prime example. I remember being there, and there was a lot of emotions were flying high, and I think it's something that's been built up for a long time. I'm not going to sit there and suggest it was the officers' fault in America that's caused the problems for me. I think that was just a nail in the coffin, as they say. Yeah, but in terms of, I remember one guy going down there, and he was speaking to the officers, and he was sitting there saying, "You don't look like me. You don't look like me." He's pointing out the white colleagues and saying, "You don't look like the community you're policing." And you know, I agreed with him. I really did. And then we got to me. You're a disgrace. And that there, for me, there is no winning whatsoever in that sort of argument, is there? Because you're having a go at us because we don't look like you, and then when we actually get someone to look like you, you're a disgrace. So how can you win in that situation? And I like challenges, I really do, and I don't do stuff because it's easy, but there is absolutely no winning there. And that was a lot of people's, and it's not everyone's. Honestly, it wasn't. There's some people that will have interesting conversations, and I've met a lot of people that will have interesting conversations about and saying what we're doing now, just like we are now. But how can I win with that? You can't win.
Yeah, it's something that I guess the community don't think about, and individuals don't think about, that actually these are the situations that, the mental situations that you're dealing with. You know, I guess when we think of a police officer, the first thing is, do you know what, this is the goodies against the baddies, and you know, you're taking knives and dealing with gangs and drugs and that sort of stuff, but we don't think about the mental stuff that you're actually having to deal with on a daily basis, and going home with, essentially, because it sticks with you,
because it doesn't,
even when you speaking about it now, you can see that it's
honestly, because I can take off the uniform, I can't take off my skin off. Can't take my skin off, can I? So that's it. If it was just about a uniform, let's say I do a 9-hour shift if I'm lucky, but if I do a 9-hour shift, at the end of that, that's it, sort of thing. I can go and do my life, but targeted because of that. It does seem it has been a bit of a change in terms of policing. Like when I was starting off, getting racially, we used to police in Kingston. People I was getting racially abused from were people from the white community, sort of thing, and that would just be their expressing their anger and stuff like that because they've got nothing else on you, sort of thing. And some of them probably actually felt that way, but definitely in the last 2 years, I'd say the switch is from people from my own community, I'd say.
Yeah. Wow. What about anybody else when it comes to the marches? I guess you ride horseback. Do you?
Yeah, I was at some of the BLM, but I got a ton of abuse, but nothing, like, it just doesn't compare to what
I guess you're also a lot higher up, so it's a lot less personal.
It is. I mean, and it's not like I at that one I was being called back, like, how dare I, like, bring up children, I'm not worthy to be a mother, and I was like, oh, okay, but you know, and that was the only thing that I sort of took away from thinking, you don't know who I am, and I end up getting into these conversations and being like, yeah, why are you judging me? You don't know, but that is part of what we do, you know, like we do have to have a tolerance and an ability to tolerate, but it's where that line is, and the abuse that Ash took and the other officers did, like that has to be a line in the sand, because we can't because the officers we have that are reflecting the community, like we need to look after them, you know, like and to make sure that other people, they can act as role models, and then we've got other people that want to come in and join and be other Ashes, other Joys.
Ryan, did you?
Yeah, no, I was alongside Ash with, obviously, we're working when we were there, and as Izzy says, I can't compare to what he experienced. Like, I've had a little bit in my time, a little bit of racial abuse here and there, and it's not nice. But yeah, witnessing it, like, we work together, you know, we're mates and stuff, and you stand there, like, and in the situation you stand there on a line, and we've got nowhere to go. Like, at that point, we're there. We're told you stand there and you don't move, and that is it. No one goes past you, and that's the end of it. For hours, and you've got to stand there and just take it. And there's nothing I can do. Ash can't walk away. I can't stop that person. Like, we're not in a position to make it stop. It's not like we can arrest people, because what they're doing is disgusting and outrageous, and there are offences being committed. But in the grand scheme of things, we've got so much other stuff going on. So even the ability to arrest that person, at least go, well, you know, we're going to investigate this. We're going to at least try and find some justice out of this situation. We can't even do that. You just become a punching bag, and you just stand there. And especially for, as Ash says, I understand with the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests, and everyone understands where it came from, and everyone, you know, people try and get their heads around it. But especially in those days, I feel like the police were there, and our policing style was, we weren't trying to intervene with anything. We were just there. We had to be there because of things that were happening and whatnot. Obviously, our job is to be there and to protect buildings, protect people and stuff like that. But, you know, we weren't interfering. We weren't trying to send people home, because we kind of got the situation. And it wasn't your atypical protest where it's kind of like, turn up, have your protest, but then at a certain time you need to go home, and that's the end of it. Like, it was different. And yeah, to just stand there and then watch the abuse coming into colleagues and just be nothing to do. You just can't do anything. And you were there for hours and hours and hours, and then you were there the next day, and it was the same thing, and nothing was changing. And I had the odd conversation with people, and you could talk to people, and like we've done today, like, if you actually got some one-on-one, you could really dispel some rumours and have a good conversation, and that's great, and that's what I like doing. But for the majority of those days, you were just a punching bag, no matter what.
Well, I will say, even if though it was 30 people that were chanting it, there were 1,000 people there. So it's not. Again, it's the minority that are hiding amongst the majority of people that are there for a good reason and for their reason. So it certainly wasn't everyone, but it's just something I think that will. You remember your first shift, don't you?
Yeah.
You remember your first arrest. I think that will stick with me for. Which is probably a good thing, because then we can learn from it, and I realise then there's a real big problem here that we need to do something more. But yeah,
it was and I think I didn't go on the protest, but I was actually off during that time on annual. But that's how the network started up, because I was speaking to so many black officers that were really going through it, and you're going through an emotional time. You've got your kids at home asking you questions, asking you. Why are you a police officer? Look what they're doing. In America, look what's happening here, and kind of comparing the two. And you're going through your own emotional things, because like Ash said, you can't take your skin off. You still feel that same pain. And so, to be a police officer, and like I said, you're trying to make change, and you're trying to help your community, trying to protect your community, you're trying to keep your community safe. And then to hear, there was so many people I spoke to, like Ash, who said, that was one of the worst times of their whole career. Bearing in mind what you're faced with as a police officer in your career, for people to come out with that, because your own people attacking you, was really hard. And, when the networkers then, we were having loads of discussions and talking about different things, the effects of George Floyd, and everyone was able to talk very openly and very freely about what had happened and how they felt as black police officers within the organisation. And the one good thing that sort of came out of that was people in say, you know what, I still enjoy my job, and they still wanted to make change at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, we've got to carry on, we've got to do this, because we're needed. Can't all go and just chuck in our warrant cards. I mean, like I said, there's 1,100. So do you know what I mean? All of us you got none. Like, it was really about empowerment, and really about us making a change and saying, do you know what? Let's come together as black officers within this organisation, and let's try and make the difference that we can within this organisation and with our communities. Let's try and break down these barriers and break down these walls once and for all. Do you know what I mean? So we can join together and just make it a better Met.
Let's touch on what you said. Something, Ash. You said you remember your first day. Let's touch on that. Let's change the mood a bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
well, mine's actually quite somber. Yeah. So my first arrest and my first day actually, I was over at Croydon, and I remember the first shift specifically because there was a fight down at Croydon. Well, I won't say exactly where, but it was off the London Road, and there'd been some sort of house party there, which had turned into some sort of drama. You have a look down the road, there's sticks, bottles, everything. And then I saw some guy limping towards me, and he sort of stumbles. I grabbed hold of him, and you could see he was wearing black jeans, but he's wearing grey tracksuit bottoms underneath. One side of his tracksuit bottom was grey, the other side was completely red with blood. So he'd been stabbed in the back of the thigh. So I've gone to help him, and at that point, his friends had decided to pull me off of him, sort of thing. I've got a first aid bag and everything else. So no, we don't want your help. He doesn't want to speak to you and this, that, and that. So it's even then. That was when I was first. Like, there's a real problem here, sort of thing. Because if you can't talk to a police officer who's helping, I'm not asking who's done this. I'm just trying to literally make sure I can give you some decent first aid and patch you up before the LES get here, the ambulance service get here. So it was right by Mayday, luckily. So we just literally dropped him down. But yeah.
Okay. You want to touch on your first day?
Do you know what?
Because you've been through a few units, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I don't actually massively remember my first day, but I do remember my first arrest. And it's really funny. Like, when you first go out on the street, you go, slightly changed now. But when we did it, we had you go to street duties. So you're kind of, we used to call it being puppy walked for however many weeks, 8 weeks, something like that.
8 weeks, something like that.
And so I was with this guy who was really tall and skinny, and we were walking on foot over Hampstead Heath, random, and then he smelt dope, and I was like, oh yeah, and there was it was a sunny day, right? Everyone was sat smoking dope.
Yeah.
And he just launched himself across Hampstead Heath like a gazelle. I just remember thinking, these really long legs. I was like, oh my God, where's he going? Because when I was younger, I was around a lot of people smoking dope.
Yeah.
So it kind of didn't go on my radar. Like I was like,
This is
oh,
a new
you're gonna go and check. Oh, right. He stopped him.
Yeah.
He stopped. He had a joint. He was smoking it. It looked like, completely banged to rights. And then I had to go and arrest this kid. And he wasn't a kid. He was in his 20s. I felt so sorry for him. He was the nicest guy. And he was like, this is the weirdest arrest. You're being so nice. I was like, no, but you're so nice. But anyway, that was my first arrest. It was for a guy smoking a joint on Hampstead Heath. And, and that's when I realised that I was going to be doing something very different. So it was a bit of a culture change to me. But I just remember him leaping like a gazelle.
Ryan?
Yeah, and I don't have anything exciting. It's really boring. Because I came out of training school and I went to neighbourhoods in Putney. And obviously in Putney High Street there's loads of shops. And so a little similar sort of thing with the street duties is typically in our world you get the new officers to do all the rubbish jobs. And I just remember just being there
Is
and
that
opposite.
a typical thing? Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. You're young in service, you've been there no time at all, so you get all the rubbish.
For the first few years.
Yeah, and then there was, I think it was a TK Maxx literally across the road from our little office. And you could just sit there and just wait for a shoplifter, and that's like what my experienced PC did. He was like, "We'll just wait," and then you see a shoplifter, he'd run over there and nick him. That was it. It was nothing exciting. Yeah, but yeah. On the day you're like, "Oh my god, I'm finally a police officer, I've arrested someone." But looking back at it now, like 7 years later,
you do see things in this job that you would never ever think.
Yeah.
Like it's no 2 days are the same. They really aren't.
Yeah.
And like you got some funny experiences, you got some heartbreaking experiences, but like I've laughed way more than I've cried.
Okay. Joey?
I guess one of my, I can't think of my very first actually, but one of mine, I know I was a probationer, is when I was on a night duty and we'd got a call that suspects of some people, suspects of burglars left the property and were running away, whatever. But it was dark. It was really dark, and so we had the helicopter. What was Indian Line Night? It's called something else now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we had the helicopter sort of walking us through. And I remember walking down this road, pitch black, can't see anything, and then these houses had some bushes, and I had some colleagues with me, and these boys were hiding behind these bushes, and I remember coming round the corner, coming around this bush, and they're there, and we're like, everyone's shouting, and we're spinning round in circles, and we're got knives, we're trying to get the knives off of, and I remember everything was just like, you just get this whole rush of energy, do you know what I mean? But I remember just spinning round in circles. We call it like a roll around, but it was literally, we were just rolling around in circles, trying to get the knife off this guy and trying to stop the guy. But yeah, I remember that being my first arrest, and my governor was there at the same time actually. So yeah.
Mm. Do you ever wake up in the morning and go to yourself, I no longer want to do this. This is beyond me. I thought it was the job for me at that point in time. But now I don't believe that it's for me no longer. Do you ever, I guess with anyone, you go to work, you started a job when you was 19. It was great for 5 years. And then I've outgrown it, or it no longer serves me, or hold on, am I going to be doing this for the next 15 more years?
Because it's more about like your morals and your principles being a police officer. Like those generally don't change, do they, in you? Like, and because there are so many other jobs you can go into within it, I don't think you can kind of like get bored or be like even if you might end up in a unit where you're like, this is rubbish, or the hours are rubbish, or I don't like the people I work with. Clash of personalities. You can move somewhere else, right? And that is what people do. They move around. Also, I love my job. I love it. If I wasn't in the mounted unit, I reckon I'd give it some other bits a go again. I've done loads of other bits, and I'd definitely try something new. Personally,
this is going to be quite controversial, but so we're, I guess a lot of people have been in trouble with the police before, but also there's been a lot of people that have been in situations where they are wrongly accused of doing something they didn't do, or wrongly stopped and searched, strip searched, whatever the case may be. How important is it, and you lot are police officers, but how important is it for those people to complain to the police service about police officers? And as I said, it's very controversial because you lot are police officers, and you lot could be at the other end of that, essentially, that complaint at some point. But we're talking about improving the services, improving transparency, so community and police force can become, semi-merged. I don't think it would ever be fully complete, but semi-merged. So how important is that?
It's very important.
So important.
I don't want to work with people that are up so good, personally. So if they are, as I said, there's 32,000 police officers. I've not met all of them, okay? Like the ones I work with, I know are doing what they should be doing. But, yeah, if there are, make a complaint. There's several ways you can do. You can go online, you can call 101, you can speak to the officer. If the officer has a supervisor there and then, it's there. But we're very open and accountable. The body worn video certainly doesn't lie. So, and that is on recording throughout any stop or arrest or any sort of incident as well. There's certain instances where we go to, like domestics and stuff, where the recording's on from the start. So yeah, definitely.
And if you make that complaint, it gets reviewed by senior management, and then they'll make contact with you. Like they'll assess what's gone on. Whatever happens, you'll be in the process of you'll be informed throughout. And it becomes a conversation again, like we're having. You've got to do it. If it's a stop that you've either resented for a reason or whatever, and it needs to be looked into, and there is wrongdoing will be dealt with.
Yeah. But what those officers are, they although I know it's always mentioned that it's police investigating the police, and who's investigating the police sort of thing, who's policing the police. So, but these, end of the day, the officers that it goes to, they've got professional standard departments, and then we've got the DPS, and then we've got the IOPC. So those officers that investigate it don't owe anything to me at all. They've got no allegiance to me. They might be in the same organisation, but there's 32,000 of us just in the Met alone. Like it's like they will do what is right. Simple as like that's what their job is, and they'll have a review, and all their evidence that they look at and the decisions they're made is reviewed by someone else as well. So but their job there, what they can do is, and I think I mentioned this before, like. One thing we're not very good at as police officers, and we're not very good at communicating and explaining stuff fully. And I can list out, you're detained under Section 23 of Misuse of Drugs Act, but what does that actually mean? I can give you legislation, but what does that mean to you? Because unless you're a law book and you know everything, you're not going to know exactly what that is. So, that's one thing that we have fallen short of. We don't explain it, and these officers will go through and explain it. They'll say, look, like this is why this officer has, because we go through a report. That report will be supervised by me in terms of stop and search, and then it will be reviewed by them as well. So yeah, definitely.
I think you said like with the learning, that's the key thing here. And as we've kind of touched on before, we've evolved as an organisation where everything I think typically in the past used to be someone had to get in trouble and there had to be discipline and maybe people had to lose jobs, which created a certain sort of atmosphere. But now, especially for and I'm not trying to sort of belittle, if you go through an experience, it's obviously going to be much different for you as the member of the public than it is going to be for me as the police officer. But if you feel that something wasn't done right there, then we need to learn from that. And the only way we can learn is if people tell us. And as the others have said, it is taken seriously. It's not just you might make a phone call or type a report online and then it just gets filed away somewhere and then you'll get a reference number and that'll be the end of it. It's not. It goes through so many levels that's already been explained, and if there is learning to be done there, we will have it and we welcome it, because that's how we get better. And everything is so transparent with the body cams. Like those things pick up everything. They're like super high definition. There's something silly like 8 microphones on them. You can hear everything on them, from conversations that are happening meters away. We as police officers, the manufacturers, no one has access to the footage. The moment we go back and plug them in at the police station, that's it. It's on the server and it can't be touched. It's not going to get deleted. We don't have the power to delete it. Once it's on and it's recording, that's it. That footage exists forever. And so, if there is something wrong, we'll look back at it and we'll go, that's where it went wrong. And if it is a minor, smaller thing that we can learn from, then we'll do that. But if it's a bigger discipline issue, then equally we'll do that.
And that'll be something that you'll be involved in, a part of that process of education. If it's an officer and it's their manner, if it's just their manner and the way they came across to you and made you feel, then that is still education, and that will be something for the complainee to be a part of if it's that. Yeah. If they say.
Have any of you ever been pulled over by your own, like not a colleague, but obviously another unit? So you're driving along on a Sunday, you might be with your kids, or you're going out with your mates. Have you ever been pulled over or stopped? You're in a pub Have you ever been in that situation where you have to kind of go, you have to look at them and go?
So from the shifts that we work, so our shifts
regularly.
are all over the place. So we'll come in, we'll be doing an early entry, for instance, and we'll start at 3 a.m. So I'm driving at 3 a.m. and there's not many cars out at 3 a.m. So, and police officers will see you. I like to say I'll stick to the speed limit, okay? But yeah, so we're driving in and they'll pull you over and just see what you're doing, because it is strange for a vehicle to be out at 3 a.m. really. So I get pulled over quite a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that's strange though? 3 a.m. Cars are meant to drive.
No, I get.
People,
To be fair, it depends what routes you're doing, sort of thing. So the way that I go in, I do some of the back roads and stuff like that. So if I'm driving through a residential road and everything else, why is a vehicle down there, sort of thing? So and unfortunately, officers are. Our job is to be nosy in terms of.
It is more of a sus time of night as well, like 3 a.m.
No, a lot of people are creeping at that hour. You know, they're going from one house to the next.
Exactly. Yeah. So chances are that we're either. I think I mentioned it before. So that's 3 a.m. is when the clubs start kicking out, isn't it, as well? So the vehicles on the road. Yeah, I like to think my manner of driving is good, but they'll just check to see if make sure you're driving according to your license, and now have a smell. Can they smell alcohol on me? Am I pissed, basically, sort of thing, and that's it. So.
Okay, and anyone else? Have you ever been in that situation where you?
Well, same as Ash, obviously. Yeah, it's similar as you're driving at that time, you're getting into work, and people fancy. I've had it before where I've seen police cars behind me following, and I thought, I know what's going on here. So you're driving for a little bit.
You get scared. Like I still get scared.
Yeah, I get a bit nervous.
If I see a police car in my rear view mirror, I get butterflies.
Yeah, I'm not.
And I think, oh my god, I hope all my lights are okay and everything. That's my first instinct.
I suddenly think, have I got insurance? I pay for insurance and direct debit every year, and I'm like, have I got insurance? But
so I guess you deal with normal things that normal people deal with. Essentially, as you said, your insurance could cut out, and you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
We're fallible, aren't we? Like we can make mistakes.
Yeah.
Honest mistakes for the right reasons.
That's all right.